How are you guys doing? It's Isaac Wade, and today I want to talk about smoked cannabis and why I'm personally not a big fan of smoked cannabis when it comes to using it as a medical treatment. So, a lot of people on my comment section of some of my antidepressant videos have suggested that smoked cannabis is a better alternative to some of the more standard antidepressants, and unfortunately, this just isn't the case. And I'm not trying to say here that there aren't any benefits to medical cannabis. I think for certain people under certain conditions, they would benefit from medical cannabis. But for the vast majority of individuals looking for treatment for mental health issues, cannabis is probably not going to be the best option. And why is this the case? Well, a couple different reasons. The first reason has to do with smoking. And unfortunately, smoking just is not the best mode of administration, especially for psychoactive compounds. Now, the problem here is that THC, which is the psychoactive component of cannabis, causes euphoria. And when you smoke a drug, it goes directly from your lungs to your bloodstream to your brain. It almost happens instantaneously. In fact, if you take a look at the pharmacokinetic profile between a smoked drug and an injected drug, they're almost identical, right? You're essentially just slamming massive dosages of whatever drug you're smoking. So what happens to people is that you start making this mental connection between smoking, right, the act of smoking, and then feeling euphoric from the THC. And this is a big problem because it can cause addiction in certain cases. And I'm not saying here that cannabis is more addictive than cocaine. I'm not saying that cannabis is more addictive than heroin. What I'm saying is that there's more data now to suggest that, you actually can develop a cannabis use disorder, and it looks like up to half of people that use cannabis on a daily basis do in fact end up developing a cannabis use disorder, and overall, about 9% of people that use cannabis develop a cannabis use disorder. And the problem with a cannabis use disorder is that basically it means that using cannabis has negatively impacted your social life, your work life, your family life, and it really has inhibited your ability to accomplish your dreams and aspirations, and you have, difficulty trying to decrease your use of cannabis. And I think, anecdotally, a lot of us know someone who struggles with cannabis usage, who has a difficult time not using cannabis, and who's often under the influence. And you can really see the negative effects that this can have on an individual. So that's one reason, because of the addiction potential. The next reason why I don't like smoking is because it obviously irritates your lungs, right? And we don't have conclusive evidence that cannabis smoke causes cancer or that it causes chronic lung disorders. But intuitively, right, like lighting something on fire and inhaling it deep into your lungs is probably not the best practice. And if you take a look at cannabis smoke, you do see some cancer-causing molecules or carcinogens that are inside of that smoke. So I think just it's probably not a good idea to smoke anything into your lungs. The next reason why I don't like smoking is that it's difficult to achieve a consistent dose, right? There's going to be a lot of variability between the dosage that you're going to be taking. And taking a larger puff, inhaling deeper, holding your breath for longer, these are all different factors that are going to influence the dose that you're taking. And some days you might be having, 10 times the dosage of another day. And in medicine, it's important when we think about treatments that we're using a consistent dosage of the drug every single time. And if you're smoking the drug and you're hitting, 10 times the dose that's therapeutic, that's definitely going to be a problem, right? For example, one of my favorite drugs, escitalopram, which is a very common antidepressant, it's safe and effective at the 10 milligram dose and the 20 milligram dose. But if I had a bunch of escitalopram and I started smoking it somehow, and I was achieving, dosages equivalent to, 80 milligrams or 100 milligrams, this product would no longer be safe and effective. So if you're smoking a product, it's going to be difficult to achieve the dose that you're looking for. In my opinion, it's going to be easier to go above the therapeutic dosage and into the more, toxic dosage range where you start to experience side effects. So the next reason why I'm not a big fan of smoked cannabis has to do with the clinical evidence. And, in order to recommend a drug, I need to know that it's safe and that it's effective. And I need to know the dosage at which it's safe and effective. And I need to know, the safety profile. Like, what are all the side effects that this drug can cause? What are the rates of these side effects? What type of people might experience these side effects more than others? And a lot of this information, we just don't know about cannabis at the moment. And part of it has to do with the lack of research, right? With, escitalopram and other FDA-approved molecules. We have high quality studies, namely randomized control trials, where we can actually, draw causal conclusions about certain drugs. If, the treatment group is experiencing nausea at 10% and the placebo group is experiencing nausea at 1%, well, then the treatment is probably causing nausea. But in the case of cannabis, if I see that more people that use cannabis, like if I look backwards and I just see that people that use cannabis generally tend to get schizophrenia more, well, then the question now is, well, did that cannabis usage produce changes in the brain that made the individual more susceptible to developing schizophrenia? Or are people with schizophrenia just more likely to self-medicate with cannabis, right? So we run into these types of problems trying to figure out whether or not cannabis causes these side effects, or whether or not people with these types of disorders and characteristics are more likely to use cannabis. So it's the chicken or the egg question. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of data going forward in a randomized control type setting that we can draw from in order to know exactly what types of side effects cannabis actually causes. And with a side effect like schizophrenia, it'd be very important to know whether or not cannabis causes this condition, because schizophrenia is not something that you want to roll the dice with. Second of all, not just safety data, but we're lacking efficacy data as well. And I've talked about this before, but a lot of mental health conditions like depression, if you don't treat depression, it can cause permanent changes to your brain. It's actually like depression is actually a neurotoxic state, and that a lot of these other mental health conditions are also neurotoxic. They can produce changes in your brain, and they can make it more difficult for you to get out of these mental health episodes in the future later on down the line. So it's very, very important to address these mental health concerns as soon as possible to prevent neurotoxicity, to preserve different regions of your brain, and to make yourself more able to recover from future depressive episodes or future anxious episodes or whatever type of mental health condition that you're talking about. And if you're using a treatment that's actually not effective and you're just allowing your depressive episode to progress, you're going to be doing damage to your brain. And lastly, another reason why I'm not a big fan of smoked cannabis is that most people are self-medicating. If you actually saw a cannabis clinician and were prescribed a cannabis product, what you'd find in a lot of cases is that these clinicians are incredibly conservative, and they'll prescribe a very low dosage of an orally dosed medication. It'll be like a very low dose of CBD. You'll titrate the medication very slowly over time, and they'll monitor you for side effects very, very closely. They're not going to be recommending probably that you smoke joints, or that you're doing giant bong hits, or using other types of more risky administration methods. They're going to be very conservative. They're going to use a orally dosed medication like a sublingual drop. All right, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it very much. If you're looking to support the channel, feel free to visit Surrey Victoria Park Pharmacy, located at Surrey and Victoria Park, one of the best pharmacies in the city of Toronto. If you agree with me, let me know. If you disagree with me, let me know. Would be very interested to hear. Cannabis, this is a very interesting topic, a very new topic. So I just thought I would provide just some perspective about my feelings about smoked cannabis, specifically for treating different types of mental health disorders. So thank you guys again for watching. Appreciate it very much, and I'll see you in the next video.